Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the starship Terra's Pride, staring at the communication screen with growing horror. The message from the Galactic Council had just finished playing for the third time, but she still could not believe what she had heard. "They're sealing us in," she whispered to her second-in-command, Captain Rodriguez. "They're actually going to leave us all to die." The plague had started 3 weeks ago on the mining colony of New Perth. At first, the doctors thought it was just another strain of space flu. Workers got sick, complained of headaches and fever, then recovered in a few days. But this time was different. This time, people didn't get better. Dr. Marcus Webb had been one of the first to realize something was terribly wrong. He worked at the medical station on Titan 7, a research facility that studied alien diseases. When the first samples arrived from New Perth, he knew immediately that this was no natural illness. "It's engineered," he told his assistant, Dr. Park, as they examined the blood samples under the microscope. "Look at how it attacks the cells. It knows exactly which DNA sequences to target. This was made in a laboratory." The plague spread faster than anyone could have imagined. Within days, it had jumped from New Perth to 12 other human colonies. The victims all showed the same symptoms: high fever, severe pain, and then death within 72 hours. No human medicine could slow it down. Admiral Chen had immediately contacted the Galactic Council asking for help. The Confederation had advanced medical technology that was far beyond anything humans possessed. Surely they would send aid to their allies. But the response that came back was not what anyone expected. The hologram of Council Speaker Valdris, one of the tall, pale ethereals, had delivered the message with cold precision. His voice carried no emotion as he spoke. "The Council has reviewed the situation in human space," Valdris had said. "The biological weapon appears to be specifically designed to target human genetic markers. While tragic, this presents an opportunity to contain the threat before it can spread to other species." Admiral Chen had felt her blood turn cold as the ethereal continued. "Effective immediately. All human territories will be quarantined. Quantum barriers will be established around your space to prevent any ships from entering or leaving. We regret this necessity, but the safety of the greater galactic community must take priority." The message had ended there. No offer of medical assistance. No promise to search for a cure. Just abandonment. Captain Rodriguez broke the silence on the bridge. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the outer colonies. They're already starting to put up the barriers." Sarah closed her eyes and tried to think. 50 billion human beings lived in the quarantine zone. 50 billion people who were about to be sealed off from the rest of the galaxy and left to face this plague alone. "Get me a channel to all fleet commanders," she ordered, "and send a message to every human colony, mining station, and research facility in our space. We need to talk." Across the quarantine territory, similar scenes were playing out. On the diplomatic station at Kepler Point, Ambassador Zara Okafor was packing her belongings with shaking hands. She had spent 15 years working with alien species, building relationships, creating trust. Now all of that was meaningless. Her assistant, a young man named Tommy, was helping her seal the last of her personal files. "Ma'am, what are we going to do? The council won't even talk to us anymore." Zara looked out the window at the space around the station. In the distance, she could see the shimmer of the quantum barrier as it slowly formed. Soon they would be completely cut off. "We're going to survive," she said firmly, "and then we're going to make them pay for this." Dr. Webb was having no luck with conventional treatments. Every drug, every therapy, every technique he tried had failed. The plague seemed designed to resist human medical knowledge. But as he worked through another sleepless night, something began to bother him about the test results. "Dr. Park, look at this," he called out to his assistant. "Do you see anything strange about these blood samples?" Dr. Park examined the data on the screen. "They're all from terminal patients." "What am I supposed to see?" "Look at the stress hormone levels. They're incredibly high, but look what happens to the plague organisms in areas with the highest concentration." Dr. Park leaned closer. "They're slower? The plague is replicating more slowly in areas with high stress hormones?" "Exactly. It's like the body's natural response to extreme danger is somehow interfering with the weapon." Dr. Webb felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. What if the cure isn't medical at all? What if it's psychological? Meanwhile, Admiral Chen was conducting her own kind of research. She had called together every human ship captain, colony administrator, and military officer she could reach. The meeting was held on her flagship, with hundreds more joining by video link from across human space. "They've written us off," she told the assembled group. "As far as the Confederation is concerned, we're already dead. They've sealed us in here to die quietly while they go about their business." An old mining supervisor named Jackson spoke up from the back of the room. "So what do we do, Admiral? Wait here and hope someone changes their mind?" Sarah shook her head. "No, we fight. But first we survive. I want every ship, every station, every colony to start gathering resources. Food, medical supplies, weapons, raw materials, everything. If we're going to be alone, we need to be ready for anything." "What about the plague?" asked Captain Morrison from the heavy cruiser New York. "Half my crew is already showing symptoms." "Dr. Webb thinks he might have found something," Sarah replied. "But even if he finds a cure, we have a bigger problem. The Council didn't just abandon us because of the plague. They did it because they never saw us as equals. We were useful labor, disposable soldiers, nothing more." She looked around the room at the faces of her fellow humans. Some were frightened, some angry, but all of them were listening. "I think it's time we reminded the galaxy what happens when you abandon human beings to die. We've built their colonies, fought their wars, and died for their causes. Now they'll learn what we can do when we're fighting for our own." In the weeks that followed, the quarantine zone became a hive of activity. Ships that had been carrying cargo were quickly converted to carry weapons. Mining equipment was turned into tools of war. Most importantly, humans began to work together in ways the Confederation had never allowed. Dr. Webb made his breakthrough on the same day the last quantum barrier snapped into place. He had been testing his theory about stress hormones when he discovered the truth. The plague could be beaten, but only by embracing the very thing that made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. "It feeds on resignation," he explained to Admiral Chen over the communication link. "The weapon was designed to kill humans who gave up hope. But if we fight, if we refuse to accept death, our bodies produce chemicals that destroy it." Sarah smiled grimly. "Then I'd say the aliens made a very big mistake. Because if there's one thing humans are good at, it's refusing to give up. The galaxy had abandoned humanity, thinking they were weak and expendable. Soon they would learn just how wrong they were." The first human colony to beat the plague was New Darwin, a small farming settlement on the edge of the quarantine zone. The colonists had been given up for dead when the sickness reached them. Most of the medical staff had already died, and the remaining doctors could only watch helplessly as more people fell ill each day. But the farmers of New Darwin were stubborn people. They had carved their home out of hostile alien soil and survived drought, storms, and crop failures. When the plague came for them, they decided to fight it the only way they knew how. "We're not going to lie down and die," declared Maria Santos, the colony's leader. She was 60 years old and had been fighting to keep New Darwin alive for 30 years. "If this thing wants to kill us, it's going to have to work for it." Dr. Webb watched the reports from New Darwin with growing excitement. The colonists had organized work groups to keep the colony running even as people got sick. They had everyone, even the sick ones, doing something useful. They told stories, sang songs, and reminded each other of all the reasons they had to keep living. And slowly, impossibly, people started to get better. "It's working," Dr. Webb told his assistant as he reviewed the medical data. "Their recovery rate is 3 times higher than anywhere else. The more they fight, the stronger their immune response becomes." The news spread quickly through the quarantine zone. Other colonies began copying New Darwin's methods. They organized work parties, told stories about human heroes, and most importantly, they refused to accept defeat. Admiral Chen was using this time to prepare for war. She knew that surviving the plague was only the first step. The Confederation would never willingly let humans back into galactic society. If they wanted their freedom, they would have to take it. "How many ships do we have now?" she asked Captain Rodriguez as they reviewed the fleet status reports. 412 combat-capable vessels," he replied, "plus about 1,000 civilian ships that we've started converting. The mining crews have been especially helpful. They know how to strip ships down and rebuild them." Sarah nodded. The human fleet had been small compared to the massive armadas of the ethereals or the architects, but humans had always been good at making the most of what they had. "What about weapons?" she asked. "That's where it gets interesting," Rodriguez said with a grin. "The engineering teams have been studying captured alien technology. They think they can build hybrid systems that combine our computers with their power sources." In another part of the quarantine zone, Zara Okafor was building something even more important than weapons. She was building a network of rebels and outcasts from across the galaxy. Her first contact had been unexpected. A message had arrived from outside the quarantine zone, somehow slipping through the barriers. It came from a group called the Free Makers, alien criminals and political dissidents who lived in the spaces between star systems. "We have been watching what the Council did to your people," the message said. "Many of us have suffered under their rule. If you fight them, you will not fight alone." Zara had spent weeks establishing secure communications with groups across the galaxy. She found allies among the younger alien races who were tired of being treated as second-class citizens. She contacted alien criminals who hated the Confederation's rigid control. Most importantly, she reached out to the slave species that the advanced races used for dangerous work. "The Council made a mistake when they abandoned us," she told her team of human diplomats. "They showed the entire galaxy that they will sacrifice anyone who becomes inconvenient. Now everyone knows that they could be next." But it was Dr. Webb who made the discovery that would change everything. As he studied the plague and the human response to it, he realized something amazing. The weapon that was supposed to destroy humanity had actually made them stronger. "The plague forces our bodies to produce new types of antibodies," he explained to Admiral Chen during one of their regular meetings. "But more than that, it seems to enhance our natural abilities. People who recover are stronger, faster, and their minds work more clearly." "You're saying this biological weapon is actually improving us?" Sarah asked. "In a way, yes. It's like the aliens accidentally created a formula for human enhancement. The stress of fighting for survival, combined with the body's immune response, is creating better soldiers, better thinkers, better everything." This news spread hope throughout the quarantine zone. Humans began to see the plague not as a death sentence but as a challenge to overcome. Recovery rates improved even more as people embraced the fight with renewed determination. The engineering crews were making their own breakthroughs. Led by Chief Engineer Patricia Kim, they had successfully combined human tactical computers with alien energy weapons. The result was something new in galactic warfare: weapons that could adapt and change tactics in real time. "The alien weapons are more powerful," Chief Kim explained to a group of ship captains, "but they're designed to follow predictable patterns. Our computers can make them unpredictable. We can create weapons that think like humans instead of like machines." The first successful test came when they mounted the hybrid weapons on an old mining ship called the Iron Will. The ship had been scheduled for scrapping before the quarantine began. Now it was the prototype for a new kind of warship. Captain Lisa Zhang took the Iron Will out for weapons testing. The hybrid systems performed beyond all expectations. The ship could change its weapon signatures, alter its energy patterns, and even mimic the behavior of completely different types of vessels. "It's like the ship has learned to lie," Captain Zhang reported back to Admiral Chen. "The alien sensors can't figure out what we are or what we're going to do next." As word of these successes spread, something remarkable began happening throughout human space. People started volunteering for dangerous missions. Colonies that had been barely surviving began producing supplies for the war effort. Scientists worked around the clock to develop new technologies. Dr. Webb noticed this change in behavior during his medical rounds. "People are different now," he told his assistant. "They're not just fighting to survive anymore. They're fighting to win." The transformation was most obvious among the children. Kids who had grown up thinking that humans were the weakest species in the galaxy now talked about the day when they would take their place among the stars again. They drew pictures of human ships defeating alien fleets. They told stories about brave human heroes. "They don't see us as victims anymore," observed teacher Helen Rodriguez at the New Terra school station. "They see us as warriors who haven't been defeated yet." Admiral Chen could feel the change throughout the fleet. When she walked through the corridors of her ship, she saw something in the eyes of her crew that hadn't been there before. It wasn't just determination or courage, it was confidence. "We're ready," she told her senior officers during a strategy meeting. "The fleet is as prepared as it's going to be. Our people are healthy and determined. Our allies outside the quarantine zone are in position. When do we make our move?" asked Captain Morrison. Sarah looked at the tactical displays showing the positions of the quantum barrier stations. The aliens had built their prison to keep humans in. Soon they would learn that they had actually built a fortress where humanity could prepare for war. "Tomorrow," she said. "We start tomorrow. But tonight she would send one final message to the Galactic Council. She wanted them to know that their abandoned victims had become something much more dangerous. To the species of the Galactic Confederation, her message began. You left us here to die. You thought we were weak and disposable. You were wrong. Tomorrow, you will begin to understand the price of abandoning humanity. We are coming for you, and we are no longer the same species you threw away. The message was broadcast on all frequencies, sent to every Confederation world simultaneously. By morning, the entire galaxy would know that humanity was no longer hiding behind barriers. They were getting ready to break free. The attack began at exactly 600 hours Galactic Standard Time. Across 17 different locations, human ships launched themselves at the quantum barrier stations that held them prisoner. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of Terra's Pride as her fleet approached Barrier Station Alpha 7. The massive alien structure hung in space like a metallic spider, its energy projectors creating the invisible wall that had kept humanity trapped for months. All ships? This is Admiral Chen, she spoke into her communication system. Today we prove that humans cannot be caged. Attack pattern Delta. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and show them what happens when you abandon Earth's children. The human fleet moved unlike any military force the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the orderly formations favored by alien navies, the human ships swarmed like angry insects. They changed direction randomly, used mining charges as weapons, and coordinated their attacks through what seemed like chaos but was actually carefully planned confusion. Captain Zhang in the Iron Will led the first wave. Her ship's hybrid weapon systems began firing patterns that the station's computers couldn't recognize or predict. Energy blasts that should have been simple laser beams suddenly changed frequency mid-flight. Missiles that appeared to be standard explosives turned out to carry electronic warfare packages that confused the station's targeting systems. Their defense computers don't know what to do with us. Captain Zhang reported over the communication channel. We're not following any known attack patterns. The barrier station's automated defenses had been designed to handle threats from known alien species. The ethereals attacked with perfect geometric precision. The architects used overwhelming firepower in straight lines. The energy beings called Luminari struck with pure energy weapons that followed predictable physical laws. But humans fought like humans, unpredictably, creatively, and with a willingness to take risks that alien computers couldn't calculate. Miner Captain Joe Murphy, commanding a converted ore hauler called Lucky Strike, demonstrated this perfectly. When the station's weapons targeted his ship, he didn't try to dodge in the expected ways. Instead, he flew straight at the station while spinning his ship and releasing clouds of metal debris from his cargo holds. The station's targeting computers lost track of the Lucky Strike in the chaos. By the time they reacquired the target, Murphy had positioned his ship directly against the station's hull and was using industrial cutting lasers to slice through the armor. This is how we cut through asteroid hulls, Murphy announced cheerfully over the radio. Alien metal isn't much different. Similar scenes played out at barrier stations across the quarantine zone. Human ships commanded by former miners, merchants, and colonists used techniques that no military academy in the galaxy had ever taught. They turned cargo containers into weapons, used civilian repair tools as cutting devices, and coordinated their attacks through music and poetry instead of formal military commands. On Station Beta 12, Captain Sarah Rodriguez led a squadron of converted passenger ships in a maneuver that would later be studied in military academies across the galaxy. When the station's defenses concentrated on her largest ships, she had her smallest vessels, former taxi shuttles and personal craft, sneak in close to the station's power core. All right, people, she announced to her squadron. Remember, we're not soldiers. We're bus drivers, tour guides, and space taxi operators. So let's show these aliens how we handle difficult passengers. The small ships attached themselves to the station's hull like remora fish on a shark. Using nothing more than portable cutting tools and explosive charges originally designed for mining, they began systematically destroying the station's power distribution systems. But the most remarkable attack happened at Station Gamma 5, where Ambassador Zara Okafor commanded a mixed fleet of human ships and alien rebels who had managed to slip through the barriers. This is for every species the Council has abandoned, Zara announced as her fleet approached the station. Today we fight not just for humanity, but for everyone who has been declared expendable. Her alien allies fought with desperate determination. The freemakers, outcasts, and criminals from a dozen species used their knowledge of Confederation technology to target the station's weak points. A group of rebel architects provided heavy weapons fire, while escaped slave soldiers from the Hive Collective used their own bitter experience to predict the station's defensive patterns. Most importantly, the alien rebels were amazed by how the humans fought. They had expected desperate fury or mindless aggression. Instead, they saw something that most galactic species had forgotten: the ability to sacrifice for others, while still thinking clearly and creatively. When the Terra's pride was damaged by the station's main weapon, Captain Rodriguez immediately moved his ship to provide cover, even though it meant taking heavy fire. When a group of alien rebel ships were trapped by the station's tractor beams, human pilots flew suicide runs to destroy the projectors, giving their allies time to escape. "I have never seen anything like this," reported ship leader Kex of the Freemakers to his companions. "The humans fight as if each battle could save their entire species, but they think as if they have all the time in the world." The breakthrough came when Dr. Webb, monitoring the attacks from his medical station, made a crucial discovery. The quantum barriers weren't just walls, they were communication networks. By studying the energy patterns of the failing stations, he realized that the entire barrier system was connected through quantum entanglement. "Admiral Chen," he called over the emergency channel, "if we can take control of just one station's quantum projector, we might be able to disrupt the entire barrier network." Sarah immediately redirected her attack toward Station Alpha 7's control center, but getting there meant fighting through the station's heaviest defenses while alien reinforcements were already approaching from outside the quarantine zone. "All ships, form up on Terra's Pride," she commanded. "We're going straight through their main defenses. Follow my lead and remember, we're not trying to win a pretty battle. We're trying to break a prison." What followed was 10 minutes of the most intense combat in galactic history. Human ships dove through curtains of defensive fire, using their unpredictability to confuse automated systems, while their hybrid weapons adapted to each new threat. Ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting with hull breaches and failing systems, held together by human determination and creative engineering. Captain Murphy's Lucky Strike, already heavily damaged, rammed directly into the station's communication array, while his crew continued cutting through hull plating with mining lasers. Captain Zhang's Iron Will used its adaptive weapons to mimic the energy signatures of the station's own defensive systems, causing the station's computers to attack their own weapons, but it was Admiral Chen herself who delivered the killing blow. With Terra's Pride badly damaged and losing power, she ordered all available crew members to the engineering sections. "We're going to overload our quantum drive," she announced to her crew. "The energy feedback should be enough to destroy the station's control systems, but it means we won't have enough power to escape." Chief Engineer Kim looked up from her console. "Admiral, that's a suicide run." "No," Sarah replied, watching as her ships fought desperately around the station. "That's a breakout." The overloaded quantum drive created a cascade failure that ripped through Station Alpha 7's quantum projector array. The explosion was visible from light years away, and its effects rippled through the quantum entanglement network that connected all the barrier stations. Across the quarantine zone, the barriers began to flicker and fail. For the first time in months, human ships could move freely between the stars, but the cost had been enormous. Dozens of human ships were destroyed or crippled. Hundreds of people had died in the fighting, and Admiral Chen's own flagship was dead in space, its crew trapped aboard a powerless hull. As rescue ships moved in to collect survivors, Sarah received a communication from Captain Rodriguez. "Admiral, long-range sensors are picking up Confederation fleet movements. It looks like they're mobilizing everything they have." Sarah nodded grimly as she looked out at the wreckage around Station Alpha 7. They had broken out of their prison, but now the real war was about to begin. "Send a message to all human colonies and allied ships," she ordered. "Tell them the barriers are down and we're free to move. But also tell them that the Confederation is coming with everything they have." She paused, thinking of all the humans who had died in the plague, all the people who had been abandoned by their former allies, and all the children who were counting on the adults to build them a better future. "And tell them one more thing," she added. "Tell them we're not running anymore. If the Confederation wants a war, we'll give them one they'll never forget." In the depths of space, quantum barriers continued to collapse as human ships poured through the gaps like water, through a breaking dam. The galaxy was about to learn that abandoning humanity had been the biggest mistake in galactic history. The Confederation's response was swift and overwhelming. Within days of the barrier collapse, massive alien fleets began moving toward former human space from every direction. The ethereal mind fleet consisted of 300 crystalline ships that could coordinate their attacks through telepathic links. The Architect Construct Navy deployed their planet-sized dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. Even the mysterious Luminari emerged from their energy realms, bringing weapons that could turn matter itself into pure light. Admiral Chen, now commanding from the repaired cruiser New Earth, watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The human fleet had grown to over 2,000 ships, but they were still outnumbered 10-1. Worse, most of their vessels were converted civilian craft, going up against purpose-built warships designed by civilizations thousands of years more advanced than humanity. It doesn't look good, admitted Captain Rodriguez, studying the enemy fleet positions. They're surrounding us from all sides. Even with our unpredictable tactics, there are limits to what creativity can do against that much firepower. But Sarah had been thinking about something Dr. Webb had told her weeks earlier. The plague had been designed to kill humans who gave up hope, but it made stronger those who refused to surrender. Maybe that principle applied to more than just biological warfare. Send a message to Ambassador Okafor, she ordered. I want to know how many alien species are willing to stand with us when the shooting starts. The answer surprised everyone. Zara's diplomatic efforts had created a network of allies that stretched across the galaxy. The Freemakers had convinced dozens of pirate clans to join the fight. Rebel architects brought industrial ships that could be converted into weapons. Most importantly, entire slave species were rising up against their Confederation masters. The Helios lizard people have seized their homeworld, Zara reported during the fleet commander's meeting. The aquatic depth dwellers have declared independence from their ethereal overseers. Even some of the machine species that serve the architects are requesting permission to join our cause. Dr. Webb, monitoring the situation from his medical station, had made another crucial discovery. The psychological changes we've seen in humans are spreading to our allies, he told Admiral Chen. The alien species that work with us are becoming more creative, more willing to take risks. It's like exposure to human thinking patterns is changing how their minds work. This became obvious during the first major battle of the war at the Kepler station system. The Confederation had expected to crush the human rebellion quickly, with a massive show of force. Instead, they found themselves facing something completely new in galactic warfare, a truly combined arms force where different species worked together instead of simply fighting alongside each other. The battle began when Ethereal Mind Fleet Commander Valdris led his forces toward the human stronghold at Kepler Station. His 300 ships moved in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls gleaming as they prepared to demonstrate the superiority of advanced civilization over primitive rebels. Human vessels, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Valdris broadcast on all frequencies. Your rebellion ends here. Submit to Confederation authority and your deaths will be swift. Admiral Chen's response came not in words but in action. The human fleet scattered in all directions, seemingly in complete chaos. The ethereal commander smiled coldly, believing that panic had finally set in among the rebels. He was wrong. What looked like chaos was actually the most complex military maneuver in galactic history. Captain Zhang's Iron Will led one group of ships in a spiraling attack pattern that confused the ethereal sensors. Captain Murphy's mining ships used asteroid fields as cover while they prepared surprise attacks. Most importantly, the allied alien species coordinated their different abilities in ways that had never been tried before. The Freemaker pirates, who knew every hiding spot in the system, guided human ships through gravitational anomalies that the ethereal formation couldn't navigate safely. The rebel architects used their massive construction ships to create temporary barriers and weapon platforms. The escaped Helios lizard people provided boarding parties that could operate in environments that would kill most other species. But it was the psychological warfare that proved most effective. The humans had learned that different alien species responded to different types of pressure. Against the logical ethereals, they used music and art as weapons, broadcasting human poetry and jazz music that disrupted telepathic concentration. Against the rigid architects, they used random movement and unpredictable behavior that overloaded computational systems. Their formation is breaking apart, reported Captain Rodriguez from his position on the battle line. The ethereals can't maintain their telepathic links when exposed to human creativity. It's like our thoughts are too chaotic for their minds to process. The turning point came when the ethereal flagship itself was boarded by a mixed team of humans and alien allies. Leading the assault was Sergeant Maria Santos, the former colony leader from New Darwin, who had become one of the rebellion's most effective soldiers. "Remember," she told her boarding team as they cut through the flagship's hull, "we're not trying to destroy their ship. We're trying to free their crew." This was the most radical aspect of the human war strategy. Unlike the Confederation, which sought to dominate and control, humanity offered something that had been missing from galactic civilization for millennia: genuine equality and freedom. As the boarding teams moved through the ethereal ship, they didn't kill the crew members they captured. Instead, they showed them recordings of the plague's effects, the abandonment of human space, and the brutal suppression of other species that had tried to resist Confederation rule. "You were told we were dangerous primitives," Sergeant Santos explained to a group of captured ethereal officers. "But look around. We could have killed all of you, but we chose not to. When is the last time your government gave anyone that choice?" The effect was immediate and dramatic. Ethereal crew members began laying down their weapons and asking to learn more about the human cause. Some even offered to help reprogram their ship systems to aid the rebellion. Word of this spread quickly through both fleets. Confederation commanders found themselves dealing with mutinies and defections as their own crews began questioning orders. The rigid hierarchy that had held galactic civilization together for thousands of years started to crack under the pressure of an alternative that actually offered hope for something better. The battle's climax came when Admiral Chen made a decision that shocked both sides. Her flagship was surrounded by 6 ethereal cruisers, all demanding surrender. Instead of fighting or fleeing, she opened a communication channel to the entire ethereal fleet. "My name is Sarah Chen," she announced. "I am a human being and I am not your enemy. Your commanders told you that we are violent primitives who must be destroyed. But I want to show you something different." What followed was the most remarkable 10 minutes in military history. With enemy weapons trained on her ship from all sides, Admiral Chen ordered her crew to stand down and power down all weapons systems. "We could destroy some of your ships," she said calmly to the ethereal fleet. "But that would make us no different from your Confederation. Instead, I'm offering you a choice your government never gave you. Join us and help us build something better. Or continue following orders that serve only those who see you as expendable tools." The silence stretched for long moments. Then one by one, ethereal ships began powering down their weapons as well. Within an hour, over half of the ethereal mind fleet had defected to the human cause, bringing with them advanced technology and thousands of years of military experience. But the victory at Kepler Station was just the beginning. News of the ethereal defection spread across the galaxy like wildfire. On dozens of worlds, oppressed species began rising up against their Confederation overseers. Slave planets declared independence. Even some of the advanced species began questioning the rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization. Dr. Webb, studying the reports from across the galaxy, made a startling realization. "It's not just military victories," he told Admiral Chen during one of their regular meetings. "We're winning a war of ideas. For the first time in galactic history, species are working together as equals instead of in dominance hierarchies." But the Confederation was not finished. The remaining loyal forces regrouped around the capital world of Nexus Prime, preparing for one final battle that would determine the future of galactic civilization. "They're massing everything they have left," Captain Rodriguez reported as intelligence updates came in. "Architect dreadnoughts, luminary energy fleets, and every loyal species in the galaxy. If we lose this next battle, it's all over." Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display showing the enormous enemy forces gathering around Nexus Prime. The final battle would be the largest conflict in galactic history, with the fate of billions hanging in the balance. "Then we'd better not lose," she said simply. "Send word to all human colonies and allied fleets. It's time to finish what they started when they abandoned us to die." The final battle began in the shadow of Nexus Prime, the gleaming capital world that had ruled the galaxy for 5,000 years. Around the planet, the largest fleet in galactic history waited in perfect formation. 10,000 ships representing the remaining loyal forces of the Confederation. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the Terra Reborn, watching as the human-led alliance approached the enemy fleet. Her forces seemed tiny by comparison, only 3,000 ships, but they represented something the galaxy had never seen before. Humans, ethereals, architects, freemakers, former slaves, and dozens of other species all fighting as equals for a common cause. All ships. "This is Admiral Chen," she announced on the fleet-wide communication channel. "Today we don't fight for conquest or domination. We fight for the right of every species to determine its own future. We fight for a galaxy where strength serves justice, not the other way around." The enemy fleet was commanded by High Executor Thys, one of the ancient luminari who had helped found the Confederation millennia ago. His energy form had grown vast with age and power, and his voice echoed across space like the sound of colliding stars. "Primitive rebels," his message boomed through space. "You have brought chaos to the order we spent thousands of years building. We offer you one final chance. Surrender now and only your leaders will be executed. Continue this foolish rebellion, and we will cleanse the galaxy of your contamination forever." The human response came not from Admiral Chen, but from an unexpected source. Dr. Webb, now serving as the Alliance's chief medical officer, broadcast a message to the entire Confederation fleet. "People of the galaxy," his voice carried across the communication channels, "you have been told that we are your enemies. But I want to show you something that your leaders hope you'll never see." What followed was a data transmission containing medical records, historical documents, and video evidence. Dr. Webb had compiled proof of every atrocity committed by the Confederation over the centuries. Slave species worked to death in alien mines, entire worlds stripped of resources and abandoned. Most damning of all, records showing that the plague used against humanity was just one of many biological weapons the Confederation had employed against inconvenient populations. "This is what your perfect order looks like," Dr. Webb continued. "This is the price of the peace and stability your leaders promised. Is this really the galaxy you want to defend?" The effect was immediate. Throughout the Confederation fleet, crew members began accessing the transmitted data. Ship after ship went silent as officers and enlisted personnel confronted evidence of their government's crimes. Some ships began powering down their weapons. Others opened communication channels requesting to speak with human representatives. High Executor Thys responded with fury. "Ignore their propaganda," his voice thundered across space. "All ships open fire immediately. Destroy these rebels before their lies spread further." But something unprecedented happened. Instead of obeying immediately, many Confederation ships hesitated. Centuries of absolute obedience began to crack as crews realized they were being asked to destroy people who were offering them a better alternative. Captain Zhang, commanding the Iron Will at the front of the human formation, saw the hesitation in the enemy fleet and knew this was their chance. "All ships advance," she called out. "But remember, we're not invaders. We're liberators." What followed was unlike any battle in galactic history. Instead of a massive exchange of destructive fire, the two fleets interpenetrated each other in a complex dance of combat, negotiation, and defection. Human ships moved through the Confederation formation, using their unpredictable tactics to avoid damage while broadcasting messages of hope and freedom. The rebel ethereals, led by former Mine Fleet Commander Valdris, used their telepathic abilities to share emotions and memories directly with their former colleagues. They showed them the joy of working as equals with other species, the satisfaction of fighting for justice instead of dominance, and most importantly, the hope that came from believing in something greater than yourself. "Feel what we feel," Valdris projected to the loyalist ethereals. "Experience the freedom of choice, the warmth of genuine friendship with other species, the strength that comes from fighting for what is right instead of what is ordered." Meanwhile, the escaped slave species provided the most powerful testimony of all. When Helios lizard warriors boarded Confederation ships, they didn't come as conquerors. They came as former victims, showing their oppressors what liberation looked like. Sergeant Santos, now commanding a mixed-species marine unit, led one such boarding action against an architect dreadnought. Instead of fighting their way to the bridge, her team moved through the ship's corridors, speaking with every crew member they encountered. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. She told a group of architect engineers who had been expecting to die in battle. You can choose what you want to build instead of being ordered to create weapons of oppression. The psychological impact was devastating to Confederation morale. Ship after ship began switching sides as crews realized they were being offered something their government had never provided: respect, equality, and genuine hope for the future. But the battle's turning point came when Admiral Chen made the ultimate sacrifice. High Executor Theiss, realizing that his fleet was disintegrating through defection rather than combat, decided to destroy Nexus Prime itself rather than allow it to fall into rebel hands. "If we cannot rule the galaxy," the ancient luminary declared, "then no one shall." The planet-killer weapon that this activated was designed to turn Nexus Prime into an expanding ball of plasma that would destroy everything within 10 light-years. Billions of civilians on the planet below would die, along with both fleets and anyone else in the system. Admiral Chen saw the weapon charging and realized that Terra Reborn's experimental quantum drive could disrupt the planet killer if she overloaded it at exactly the right moment, but doing so would destroy her ship and everyone aboard. "All hands, this is the Admiral," she announced to her crew. "I'm ordering all non-essential personnel to the escape pods immediately. We're going to stop that weapon, but I won't ask anyone to die who doesn't choose to." To her amazement, not a single crew member moved toward the escape pods. Captain Rodriguez spoke for them all when he said, "Admiral, we chose to follow you this far. We're not abandoning you now." The Terra Reborn accelerated toward the massive weapon platform, taking devastating fire from loyalist ships trying to protect their ultimate weapon. Human, ethereal, architect, and Freemaker crew members worked together to keep the ship functioning as its hull was torn apart by enemy fire. Chief Engineer Kim, her hands dancing over controls that mixed human innovation with alien technology, managed to overload the quantum drive just as they reached optimal range. The resulting explosion tore through both the planet-killer weapon and the Terra Reborn itself. But Admiral Chen's sacrifice saved more than just Nexus Prime. The sight of humans dying to protect alien civilians, including many who had been their enemies just hours before, completed the moral transformation of the Confederation fleet. The remaining loyalist ships powered down their weapons and requested permission to surrender. High Executor Theiss, his ancient form flickering as his